Welcome to our monthly conversation on abolition. This month, we're going to start by thinking about how our faith teaches us about how we treat people, and especially that no one is disposable, and how that might come naturally from our Universalist heritage. And we're also going to spend some time talking about what, if anything, the congregations that you are a part of, both virtual and bricks and mortar congregations, are doing to engage with the congregational study action issue. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is the Unitarian Universalist congregation without borders or walls that includes over, we passed the number today, 2,000 incarcerated Unitarian Universalists as members. We added 71 new members to the Church of the Larger Fellowship today. um, so we passed the number 2,000, which we've been bumping up against. And because we serve incarcerated Unitarian Universalists, we have a special interest in abolition and became the sponsors of this congregational study action issue. And because we are the primary sponsors of this congregational study action issue, we are working as partners with the Commission on Social Witness, which is the UUA committee that guides the congregational study action and statement of conscience process. We have formed a formal partnership to provide ongoing education and conversation around this topic. Starting next month, we are going to be talking more specifically about what individual congregations and groups of local congregations are doing to address abolition. So I'm very excited that we're moving into that phase of things, and I hope that you have come prepared to give me some ideas of who we want to invite to be part of those monthly talks. Next month, we have Aaron Walter from the Texas UU Justice Ministry, who's going to be talking about the Texas UU Justice Ministry's witness at ICE detention facilities in Texas and how that connects with abolition specifically. And we're really excited to have a bunch of really cool folks on the agenda for the next few months. All of the conversations, both future and past, can be accessed at clfuu.org/abolition. I'm putting that in the chat. That is our website, and it's probably where you registered for this evening's program, but you can register for all of the programs through October currently, and you can also see recordings of all of the past ones. And you can feel free to show those recordings to congregations that you're working with, to use them as discussion prompts or committee meeting guides or whatever. Like, get together a group of people and watch one of those and talk about it together. That's why we're making them available. We are also about to put up, as soon as our technology manager gets back from vacation, we will be putting up a curriculum written by our folks in Minneapolis who have actually developed a curriculum on abolition, and we're hoping to schedule them to be on the monthly conversations coming up this fall. So, our chalice lighting reading is a little snippet from the essay "Love is Abolition is Earth Justice," which is featured in the collection Love at the Center, Unitarian Universalist Theologies, which I mentioned earlier. It is by the Reverend Karen Van Fossen of Bismarck, North Dakota. And she writes, "From its beginnings, Universalism has been nothing if not practical, rooted in life on earth. Because God loves everyone, particularly those who have been oppressed, some of the first Universalists on this continent, like Ellen N. Winchester and Benjamin Rush, became slavery abolitionists. According to Universalism, God's love is not a final reward for a privileged class in the afterlife. Love is life itself, which means love can always find us in a loved one's gaze, a chickadee's song, a collective fight for justice. That is the essence of Universalism. That is the heart of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Everyone can have a place. Everyone can belong. Everyone can be needed. How handy and also overwhelming that this theology, this worldview might be just what our planet needs today. A commitment to the sacredness of all, a devotion to the interconnectedness among us. Again, the words of the Reverend Karen Van Fossen of Bismarck Mandan congregation in North Dakota, with which I light the chalice, symbol of our faith. So welcome. My remarks today will be brief. Um, so and they are inspired by the fact that our next job, Unitarian Universalists' next job in this congregational study action issue, is to work with the Commission on Social Witness to write a draft statement of conscience. Now, there are a lot of people, including the Commission on Social Witness and the Church of the Larger Fellowship, who would really like us to spend another year studying this issue, and the bylaws mandate a certain timeline. So there will probably be a draft statement of conscience, whether we like it or not. And one of my baselines for what I believe the statement of conscience needs to include is a theological statement that guides us toward abolition. Even if our faith as a whole is not ready to declare ourselves fully an abolitionist faith, and I don't know if we're ready for that, though I'd like us to, I believe that we need a clear theological underpinning that guides us to that. And I believe that the clearest theological underpinning comes from our Universalist heritage, from that notion that all of us are sacred, that all of us are holy, that all of us are part of the love that is the divine in our midst, however it is you define that divine, whatever words you use for it or do not, and that all people need to have access to that by virtue of their inherent worthiness and right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. Words from our shared values as Unitarian Universalists. I think we're on the way to a theological statement. I believe that our Universalist heritage very clearly teaches us that no person is disposable, that no matter what they have done or been accused of doing in this life, no one is worth throwing away as a human being, that all of us are welcome in Unitarian Universalism and need to be welcome in a society that believes in restorative justice, in transformation, in growth, in the possibility of redemption and repair. All people, no matter what they have done or been accused of doing, need to be given the opportunity to participate in redemption and repair. Steve, I'm not going to mute because I'm actually presenting tonight, so thank you.
I was directing that at Peter and Andrew and others who are not muted.
Okay, well, it would be good if you're not talking, if you would mute. That would be lovely. Thank you so much. I just got it as a direct message, so I'm sorry. Um, all right. So where was I? No one is disposable. And I come to this theology because I've been a universalist for a really long time. Before I was a Unitarian Universalist, I was a Universalist. I didn't have the words for it. I didn't know. I didn't know what that meant until I actually became a Unitarian Universalist, and um, and someone said, "Oh, this is like what our heritage is," and I went, "Oh, I've believed that a long time." Um, and I also come to it because am one of the two ministers that served 2,000 incarcerated Unitarian Universalists. Um, as I mentioned as we were gathering, I've spent a good chunk of today um, putting the theological compilation Love at the Center into a format where incarcerated Unitarian Universalists can have access to it through a brand new e-learning platform that the Church of the Larger Fellowship has joined. This is the first time that incarcerated Unitarian Universalists will participate in the UUA's Common Read. I'm super excited by this. We have had incarcerated members of the Church of the Larger Fellowship since 1968. And it's only in the past 6 years that those incarcerated members have even been able to vote in congregational annual meetings. Because when the lead ministry team that I am a part of came on, we said, if folks are members of our congregation, we have to give them full access to participation and voting. Um, so uh, I come to this theological understanding that no one is disposable because I am witness to the many ways in which our society tries to throw people away. In the many ways in which our society tries to label people as other, the many ways in which our society tries to label people as less than, as worthy of fearing and banishing from society. And when our society is successful in doing that, it rapidly moves to dispose of those people. Those of us who are in the United States, or you who are paying attention to what's happening in the United States, see it happen in real time in the country that I was born and raised in. The United States is not the only place where this happens. If you paid attention to Hungary for the last decade, um, their strongman fascist leader spent a decade trying to paint people as other and make them disposable, trying to convince people that immigrants, especially, are were not worthy of respect, we're not worthy of dignity, we're not worthy of full inclusion in society. And once people buy that line, it's easy to create a Delaney Hall. It's easy to create a Dillard, Texas concentration camp for immigrants. It's easy to murder people in the streets, like what happened in Portland, Maine, just this weekend. Um, it's easy to do this because the folks who are charged with stopping it have come to the conclusion that they are dealing with disposable people. If we as a faith come to the conclusion that in fact no one is disposable, we have obligations that come from that. We have obligations to treat people with respect and love and dignity. We have obligations in the case of our incarcerated beloveds to help them participate in whatever processes of redemption and repair are available to them. We have obligations to help people become better people. And I could read to you from the hundreds, literally hundreds of letters that I have sitting here from our incarcerated members who write to us about how Unitarian Universalism is helping them become better people because they have a congregation, the Church of the Larger Fellowship, that openly proclaims that they are not disposable. So, my first question for you, and maybe, I don't know, there are only 23 of us here. I'm going to take a chance here and not stick us into small groups right away. And I hope that the introverts among us will forgive me for my extroverted sin. Um, what does it mean to you? You personally, how does it change you and how you practice Unitarian Universalism to embrace a theology that says that no one is disposable? And I'm going to invite you to raise your hands and I will call on you. You can raise your hand using the button at the bottom of the screen, and I will gladly call on you. So, what does it mean to you? Anyone have a response to that? Would it be easier to respond to this in small groups? Because I can do that. Okay, I have Darby, and then Mike, and then Barbara. I see Barbara's hand going. Okay, Darby, let's start with you.
I'm going to say that one of the things that it means for me is encouraging congregations to stop having an oasis mindset or a
Mm,
silo mindset or a safe space mindset. Um, we we have to be a faith that looks out instead of just staying in.
thank you, Mike.
Yeah, hi. I come to this maybe from some different position than others. I was born in 1940 in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm disabled from birth, actually before birth. Uh, Upon my entry into the open world here, doctors took a sheet of some sort, wrapped me up in the sheet, passed me to some nurse, and the nurse took me out to a table 3 or 4 doors down, where I was left to die.
Mm,
Um, you read history, and you know maybe the our species grew out of the trees and the rocks, 300,000 years ago, and maybe they did have the situation where they got rid of children who couldn't survive or couldn't participate or couldn't add to the value of the tribe. But 1940 was my experience, and I I never heard that story until maybe I was 5 or 6. But it's one that has obviously stayed with me. It is a part of my life, and when I see and hear that there are disposabilities, I do what I can to counter that. And anyway, I just wanted to say the personal side of it. For me, it's a real thing, and I'm really appreciating the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for sharing that personal story. And ableism, of course, is one of the insidious ways in which our society labels people as disposable. And I'm glad that someone, I, I'm guessing your parents, but I don't know who, said, please don't do that to this beautiful child.
It
Um,
was my parents just, and apparently there were some threats, and when the threats hit, I was brought back. But yeah, it was a struggle.
no
Thank you.
doubt.
Sorry.
Thank you for sharing that. Kat, you're muted.
Yes, I know. I thought I was further down the list. Sorry. Um, to this is something that I've been committed to for as long as I can remember, which is when people's existence is erased or
Mm,
their voices are taken away, when they are not allowed to speak, um, when they are treated as if they can be thrown away or as if they don't exist, that I have no choice but to say something. Lately, I've been getting in trouble for that, but um, it isn't going to stop me. The,
good trouble.
well,
Maybe
I,
not, but
I,
please go on. Don't let me interrupt you.
you can interrupt me anytime you want to, Michael. I do understand the reference, and I don't know. I didn't necessarily expect that I was going to survive my childhood. In fact, I was pretty well convinced I wouldn't. Um, but it still didn't change anything for me from the, time I was, I guess 14 is when it became really crystal clear to me. I was volunteering in a mental hospital. Other people have probably heard me say this before. And when one of the men in the locked ward where I was volunteering was, I mean, we do little art activities and he would always draw pictures. This is like, I don't know, maybe needs a trigger warning. Because it's sort of violent, of the shock lions biting
Mm,
his head and sinking their claws into his body. And all they had to talk to was a 14-year-old kid.
mm,
Um, and when they would come to drag them over to the gurney for their involuntary shock treatment with no anesthesia, I found that I could go over to and talk to that person, get them to come, and then go up to those orderlies and put up my hand, no, stop. And they actually listened to me. So from then on, I will speak. And when I'm told this isn't the time to speak, or you can't talk about that, or, this is someone who cannot be contradicted, I will still speak. I don't feel that there's a choice.
thank you. Thank you. And, it's very powerful if our faith teaches us that we have to use whatever power we have to stop the dehumanization in our midst. So thank you, Kat. Rosemary?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. Um, I have preached on this, Michael, and so I am trying to figure out how to limit my remarks without going into the depth of how I feel about this. Um, Declaring myself an abolitionist was a major um, effort for me to just even speak those words and to say those words. And it was all deeply rooted in my belief of all human life and all life is sacred.
Mm,
And you don't know, but Michael knows, but many of you don't know. I worked 10 years as a chaplain for adults with developmental disabilities. So I came with a learned view of deeply loving people of all kinds of abilities and disabilities and points of view, and all rooted in Unitarian Universalism. After George Floyd, I did a lot of deep dive research, and Side of Love provided some excellent trainings that brought me to the point where I could declare publicly, I'm an abolitionist. And I am thrilled and will even provide support in any way that I might be able to, that we have a theology and declare a theology of abolition. I'm complete.
Thank you. Barbara?
We belong to CLF. We also belong to up here in Canada to a local congregation, and we're revisiting the welcoming congregation concept. We take a break for the summer, but we're getting ready to launch into it again in September. One of the things, Darby brought up a really good point, the desire to not have people see it as an oasis, as a safe space in that nobody's ever going to be challenged, and that to become a faith that looks out. I love that concept. And that's part of, I think, our faith. I think our congregation here in CLF offer a lot of people in the GLBTQ 2S community an opportunity to have a faith-based religion where they feel accepted and promoted and where they can be their best selves. I have a hard time with, we're looking out, we go out, we meet people and we invite them in, but then how do we look out for them? We look out, we invite them in, and we have no minister. So how do we do that? And how does CLF do that? When we get people in and they need, what is it called? Pastoral care. So that's my comment, is just I'm curious about how to make that transition better for people.
So how do we care for people who are harmed by the abuses in our society in a meaningful way? Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Heather, did you also have something to say, or you're good?
In my mind and spirit and soul and current reality of the money system that holds us all slaves, I could see this rippling way past people who are incarcerated. I think we all are.
Well, and it should. Yeah, it absolutely should. So thank you. Karen.
Yes. Well, I've been very fortunate to be a Unitarian Universalist. I feel very blessed. But I believe in a creator God, and I always say that because I'm a Unitarian Universalist, I can believe in a creator God. So the worship services at my congregation, the services are not going to be God-centered. So I've been going to the old Dutch church. But from my experience going there since COVID for worship services, because they're God-centered, there's been people who have been disposed of because the minister made that decision that they were, one was a they, trans person who had a temper. So how do you use your conflict resolution, work with the person? No, they got an order of protection, minister, and put the name up on, and his name is all around. Well, and people say, well, you know what he did. But I love that's what you said. Doesn't matter let's make amends. Come on, James, you can do this. We can work with this. No, her answer was, I have to protect my flock. So there's 3 people that have been asked to leave the church because she thought, and to me, this order of protection was heart-wrenching. And I know it was heart-wrenching for him. He felt less of himself. He didn't feel. So that's what my feeling is. As Universalists, everyone is saved. No one is damned. And there are many ways you can handle it without disposing of the person. So that's lately I've been going, which resonates more with me, the Church of the Larger Fellowship worship services. For me, it's been a long time. I'm 77. I've been a UU, felt I was born again when I found UU when I was 20. And now I found the Church of the Larger Fellowship. So appreciate that. And I just, ministers that say they have to leave because we have to protect the rest of our flock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen. And that asks us all a really important question, right? I think you're giving us all a really important challenge is how does this theology live not in our justice ministries, but inside our congregations? How does that theology live inside our congregations? Are we actively engaging in restorative practices when people do things that are outside of covenant, when people do things that harm others? Do we engage in the practices that bring them back or give them an opportunity to come back? And they're not always successful. Let's just be real about that. They're not always successful, but we don't always give people the opportunity. It is so much easier just to say, okay, you're no longer welcome here, but it's a violation of our theology to say that before we give people the chance to engage in restoration and repair. It's a lot harder. But are we doing that in our communities? Is a great question. Gail?
Yeah, it is a really good question. Um, this is being recorded, so I'm going to be a little bit vague here, but about oh, um, almost 30 years ago, there was a member of my extended family who hurt a child, um, and I remember talking about it with a couple of minister colleagues, and I'm a religious educator, but what somebody said to me is, this is where the universalist rubber hits the road. I said, I don't know how to feel about this guy. I want him gone. And this sort of, I want him locked up feeling. Um, and remembering that the decision I made at that time was to stay with the child, who was a teenager at that point, and let him be who he was. And there was a trial. There was all of that. But I think about that now because as we deal with the folks who are in charge in Washington, D.C. right now, I'm hearing a lot of talk in circles that I move in, including UU circles, about they need to be locked up. They all need to be locked up. They need to pay for this. There's accountability coming, and when they say accountability, what they mean is punishment. So I'm just kind of wrestling with that because I think that is very much alive in our congregations right now.
Yeah. And I think, Gail, you asked 2 really important questions that I'm hearing. One is, how do we deal with people who do egregious and irreparable harm?
Yeah.
Like how do we engage with those folks in a way that honors their inherent worth and dignity and still holds them accountable for what they've done.
And
That's
protects the kid.
yeah, it's not an easy answer
Yeah.
to that. And I think we need to grapple with that. And the second question is how do we not fall into the same trap um, in society writ large, with people who are doing harm,
Yeah.
with people who are doing real harm in our midst, who are unrepentant about that harm, sometimes gleeful about that harm. Um, how do we not just go into our basest instincts and go, they need to be punished. They need to be in solitary confinement for the rest of their lives, tortured and whatever because of the harm that they're doing. Um,
And
so
I think that is in us.
yeah. Oh
That is
yeah.
absolutely in us, and trying to figure that out. It's much easier to talk about abolition as an abstraction than it is as a personal practice.
Steve, I'm going to go to you because we've heard once from Kat, and then we'll go to Kat.
Thank you, and thank you for this challenging subject. Uh, when I have been talking with members of my congregation and raise the study issue of abolition, uh, one response that I hear frequently is, that's pretty radical. And I say, well, yes, but we are radical. Remember that we believe that Jesus died on the cross for to save everybody ever born, will be born, etc. And I get this kind of funny look. And I have to remind ourselves that because we are a faith that is peopled by a majority of people who've come from somewhere else, there is an ongoing ignorance of our history,
Mm,
of our theological history, both as Unitarians and Universalists. Uh, I also find myself talking about the doctrine of universal salvation in Vermont Interfaith Action,
mm,
in which we participate, and I get raised eyebrows and chuckles, but I don't get a hostile response. And I think that's because the people attracted to Vermont Interfaith Action, like us, are people who are interested in doing faith work that recognizes everybody's humanity. However, my professional life was a union organizer and lobbyist, and I'm now lobbying on behalf of the incarcerated. And when I bring up the idea of abolition to legislators, uh, it's have you seen your psychiatrist lately, Steve? And I recognize that baby steps are called for there. So when I say I'm lobbying to eliminate the private sector involvement in incarceration, heads nod up and down in agreement. When I talk about having to spend 75 cents a minute to talk to a friend who's imprisoned in Delaware. Yeah. So I think that one way that we can have our faith active and out there is also to be thinking of the incremental steps short of abolition,
mhm.
focusing on those sorts of things rather than a useless debate of locking them up and throwing the key away. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Steve. Kat. Oh, and you're muted again.
This is a really interesting conversation.
Good.
one of the many, just loving it. And I also liked your the piece that you posted earlier too. Michael, I mean. Um, one of the hats that I've worn has been that of a therapist who was itinerant, went to people's homes to work with children and the families of kids that had experienced extreme trauma, because I was an extreme trauma therapist. And one of the things that I found, well, to begin with, anybody that studies behavioral therapy knows that punishment tends to not work at
Hmm.
all. It does not have typically have positive effects. Um, but I would work with the parents that nobody else was willing to be in the same room with and close the door. Wasn't afraid of them. I didn't need to be. But I do think this issue of child sexual abuse, I don't think it needs to be lock them up and throw away the key. Because although there's all this mythology about how child abusers can't benefit from therapy, it's false. That's one. The second piece is that loving people does not mean having no boundaries. It does not mean that we give somebody who has an ongoing history of abusing very little children, maybe too young to speak, access to those children. But it
Or
might,
access to any children.
well, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And it might also mean that for those people who believe that they cannot attract an adult or have a relationship with them, that the last thing they need is to be told that they're terrible.
Mm.
What, in order to move on and move forward and transform, they need those of us who will still see them as human, still see them as beloved of God. I just have to go ahead and say God there because a lot of times that is what they believe, that God does not care about them and does not love them. Um, so just thank you all. Thank you. But again, yes, we can have boundaries without punishing people.
And sometimes we're going to need to separate people
Hmm.
from a good deal of society
Hmm.
and still treat them as human beings and still give them the care that they need and still give them the therapy that they need and still give them the chance to grow and to change, right? And not not maybe in a cell with barely any food and no light and no contact with the outside world, and where their mail is sifted through and redacted, and where they have to spend 70 cents a minute to talk to someone on the phone. And I could go on and on and on, and I will not because Mike has his hand up. Mike.
Thank you again. Last Sunday, I attended the CLF sermon, and we had a point there where we were putting in thoughts in the chat. I put one in that said something to the effect that while this person is not my cup of tea, he's not my choice, but I wished Lindsey Graham peace. I
Hmm.
was surprised by a couple of things. First of all, no one replied to that, and that's one thing. But the other thing is, from what I'm hearing here, uh, we need apparently, and this is a thought that I have, and the experts here can tell me whether or not I'm on the beam or not. We need to kind of beef up our whole approach to how we teach abolition because there are too many holes that we're finding right now. And I just, I believe in it. I think everybody in this room does. But, how can we increase what we need to increase in terms of helping people understand that love is the center, that nobody is disposable. Thanks.
Thank you. It's one of the reasons why I really want to start with the theological nugget at the beginning of it. We might not all get to the the whole abolitionist project, but if we agree that nobody is disposable, where at least we've grounded ourselves in a theology. Lindsey Graham is complicated.
Mhm.
He did great harm in his life, including the people that I love, uh, and directly. And he was also someone who struggled with his own demons for his entire life. And I have extraordinary compassion for the fact that he couldn't actually openly be himself his entire life. That he had to hide who he was in such a way that made him harm the people who could actually be open about who they were. Um, it's a complicated. I wish him peace. Also, I wish him reconciliation with love. I wish him an understanding of the harm that he caused and remorse for it. Uh, so, Barbara.
Thank you. I was just thinking of your original question for myself. What does it mean to embrace a theology that no one is disposable? I just think I'm thinking of it, what it means for me personally, not easy. It's not easy to really behave that way towards other people. I'm somebody who has, I have my standards, my values, my ideas, and that requires me um, to put those aside sometimes for people that I might not think they're great people.
Mm.
So it's what I'm saying is, before I get to the point about abolition and all of that, I have to think, what does this mean for me personally and how I relate to people and how I go through the world.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's all I'll say about that.
thank you. And how can I be in community with someone I don't like? Like we don't have to like everyone. Our faith does not call us to be happy, happy, joy, joy,
Mhm.
link arms, and like everyone. But how do we actually function in community, in relationship with someone that we don't like, someone who doesn't do things the way we would like them to, or who does things that bother us, even if it's not harmful? Um, it's a
Or
great
has
question.
different political views.
Yeah, yeah. This is a fantastic conversation. I'm glad we did it as a big group, and I apologize again to the introverts among us who went, we're having a conversation with 23 people. So I'm glad that so many people have been participating. Do we have oh, Rosemary?
Um, yeah, and then by the time I figured out to raise my hand, I think I forgot. Oh, no, I wanted to say widening the circle. People can't be disposable if we keep widening the circle and letting everybody in. Yes, we don't have to like them, but we keep widening the circle. That's just what came to me. Love's at the center, but our arms need to keep reaching and including.
Mm. Yeah, and how do we not just widen the circle, but bring more people to the center of the circle?
Mhm.
It's like we can make the circle wider and keep people really far away, out there on the margins of the circle.
Yeah, I guess the circle isn't a very good
I think
metaphor.
it's a great metaphor because
Yeah.
there are two things that we have to do, right? Make it bigger and actually then invite people in from the margins to the center. Like I think those are two tasks.
Yeah, and then I think
And
a third, there's some of us that are on the outside holding the circle,
mm,
holding the sacred, holding the peace and the joy. You know, it's kind of guardians, maybe. You know, so there's like a holding the circle, I think, is a role also.
mm, thank you, Karen. You're muted, Karen.
Um, to just the things that are highlighting for me, um, is that to not, I love the expression, nobody is the worst thing that they've ever done. And I hear that on many, you know, in the panels of people who have been incarcerated, who are now out, and how that they've always been looked at, okay, as the worst thing that they have ever done. And that's so important to look, like, I think, I don't know who said, to look past the injury that they caused and see their humanity. Very important. Also, you can love, if you don't like somebody, but you can love them from a distance. There are sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that boundary, but I love that that's part of what we value. And that's why we had this whole thing about making love the center. So, yeah, we can not
Thank
like
you,
people, and maybe it's best to love them from a distance. So.
thank you, Karen. Gerald.
Hi, folks. I'm new to this monthly conversation, not new to the topic of abolition, although my theological reflection has been about caste abolition and caste preservation, which is
Mm,
kind of the wider context for what we are
mm-hmm.
talking about. I just, when I hear the phrase "no one is disposable," you know, I kind of um, I just add on the phrase "without traumatic consequences,"
Mm,
and 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 my metaphysical frame is Taoism, and so there's always the yin and the yang, and so I guess my response is that we say no one is disposable. To me, that's not as much helpful information as saying that all sentient beings are integral
mm,
to therapeutic outcomes, and the belief in the faith that that is the real world that we live in, that all sentient beings are integral to the health of the entire living organism that we're part of.
So it's like it's a step beyond no one is disposable. Not
Yeah,
only
it's
is no one disposable, we need them.
yes, right. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
goes from the negative to the
Mm,
positive.
thank you. Thank you so much. We need them because we're interdependent,
Right.
right? All of us need all of us to survive. Thank you, Darby, for quoting Julian Jamaica Soto. Thankfully, I know where that quote comes from. But any other thoughts on how it is that this notion that Darby has her hand up? So I'm
I'm
gonna
just I see Juliana's hand up physically and not digitally.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
I can't.
Juliana. Well, go for it, Juliana. Thank you, Darby.
Okay, I can't figure out how to do it. I'm sure I could with time.
You wave long enough for Darby to tell me that you've been waving.
Yes,
And that's
thank
all,
you,
that's
Darby.
the way you do it.
Um, I I had a little tangential thought, as many of us were saying what we were saying, that said to me what uh, well, I will preface it by saying I've been reading a lot about what's going on in our country these days, and feeling the the anxiety of that. So the thought that I had was that a lot of what we are describing as what we like or what it should be to be this inclusive community and on, we're describing America in that
Or
there.
at least an ideal for it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yes, where someone was talking about how the incarcerated and people who've done things we don't um, like or approve of are all of these disparate parts of the whole that must be us. We must be inclusive. We must go out. Uh, we must, I guess I would add, tend to the health of the whole. And by doing that, we are of necessity including every single sentient being, and trying to make a place for them somehow. So it made me think that we're sort of struggling on larger, well, no, they aren't larger, but on a national level too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's absolutely true. Thank you. Peter? Now I'm looking for hands.
Just
All good.
just thinking back to what you said, Steve, about more incremental steps before we might define or enact abolition. I wonder if some of you may have seen the New York Times article yesterday where a large number of district attorneys in California went to San Quentin prison and asked those who live there what they might have done differently to avoid prison or how the system may have failed them to get them into prison. It was a very dynamic article, and I recommend it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and there's going to be a pathway if we're ever going to get to abolition. Like, it's not just going to be we're going to flip a switch and all of society will have been magically transformed. So I think we have to think about what are the incremental steps. And another one that I'll put out there for you is the fact that incarcerated people are legally enslaved in the United States. That the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which outlawed chattel slavery, has an exception. It says people may not be enslaved except as punishment for a crime. And many states take that to heart and they force people to work without pay. Incarcerated people are not subject to minimum wage or workplace safety uh, things. They're forced to work in unsafe conditions for pennies an hour in many places, and in some states have successfully overturned that, have successfully enacted their own laws or constitutional amendments banning enslavement even while incarcerated. And of course, the last state to try it was California, which in 2024 actually defeated a referendum to ban enslavement in California, and it's because the state is dependent; it is addicted to uh, the enslaved labor of incarcerated people in California. They put people. I don't know if how many of you watch our TV junkies like me, and I watch a lot of garbage TV. And one of the shows I watch regularly is Fire Country. I don't know how many, if any of you watch Fire Country, but one of the groups of people in Fire Country are incarcerated Californians fighting wildfires in Northern California, and that's based in actual incarcerated people who are signed up to be adjunct to Cal Fire in California and are necessary to fight the wildfires, and they get paid $10 a day
Hmm.
for their dangerous life on the line labor. $10 a day, whereas the actual firefighter, and then they're not eligible to apply for actual firefighter jobs when they're released because they have a record. And California is addicted to that. And so they defeated it in California. But your state might not, or California might not the next time it comes up, if we actually understand it better. Kat?
I understand, I understand that the state of California did in fact increase the amount of money that incarcerated people fighting fires beside Cal Fire were going to be paid. Um,
It's more than $10 a day now?
yeah, that's my
Okay.
understanding. But I also I have a lot of relatives in California, and what they were saying was it said or involuntary servitude, and people didn't know what that was.
Mm,
So they thought, yeah, so, well, of course, if you're in prison, you should have to work to pay for the cost of keeping you there, or, involuntary servitude. They thought that that meant like serving the meals to the other prisoners. So there was a lot of confusion. It wasn't, I think, very well presented to begin with. But the part that is distressing about the Cal Fire piece was that even when they were paying them $10 a day for this very dangerous work, they were overwhelmed by volunteers because they would rather do anything than spend that day in the California prison.
mm.
They were willing to go into the danger with what amounted to $1 an hour's pay um, because it got them out of the prison. And that says something to me that is very distressing. Also, the 13th Amendment did say um, punishment for which they've been duly convicted. So, how do the private prisons that are running these detention facilities get away with that one? Most of those people have never been duly convicted of anything. A lot of times they were picked up from their first hearing.
That's a great question. I'm just trying to address an incremental step that most of us might be able to push for. If you happen to live right down the road from your state capital and like want to start talking to some legislators, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to talk about, especially if they might be inclined to respond favorably, where some of us don't live in those places. Okay, Karen, and then I'm going to wrap us up.
Okay, just quickly, the abolition study, my little role is I do go to Zoom meetings with the different 13 Forward, RAP, and they have campaigns that say what we'd like to work for on the legislation, the incremental stuff. They say we want to abolish prison, but That's not going to happen right now. So that's my little piece to find out from them, their campaigns. What inside and outside, what do you want us to work on? And that's part of the abolition study group.
Thank you. And RAP, if you're not familiar with it, RAPP is Release Aging Prisoners on Parole.
People.
People.
Release aging people from prison.
Release aging people from prison. And it's basically they're trying to increase the availability of parole for elderly incarcerated people who have served lengthy sentences already. Yeah. And that's
yes.
It's
there's a different one. There's elder parole. That's different. Yeah. There's two different. That's what I do. So I'm just okay. Yeah, they're two different bills. Yeah.
But it's a way to get people out of prison.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Which is the goal, ultimately, right? We start with someone who we can agree, they can still be part of society. Well, thank you all. I'm going to extinguish our chalice with thanks for this conversation and with hope that we might embrace a theology that no one is disposable, with hope that we might continue this conversation and continue it in more local ways. If you are part of a group doing some interesting work and you might like to have people from your group speak at a monthly conversation, I'm booking the monthly conversations for the next year. And you can email me at mtino@clfuu.org or use the contact me feature at clfuu.org/abolition. And just let me know, hey, I'm from XYZ town, and this is what we're doing locally, and it's a really interesting project, and I will get back to you. I promise you. It might not be next week, but I will get back to you. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of you being here.